Snake River Fly, 1st of May 2023. Back on the vise, tying on a Renzetti Traveler that I've had since '99. Never replaced anything except for that little piece of rubber. Probably the best intro vise I think out there, just in my opinion. You know, warranted for life. Not that it needs it, because this one's tied a gazillion bugs. Anyway, we love the Renzetti Traveler and the folks over at Renzetti. I'm going to start out with a number 14 heavy scud hook here, and we're just going to tie some egg patterns for some suckers that are spawning all over Snake River country and probably lots of places in the west. And the suckers usually will spawn here, you know, mid-April, all the way up to the 1st of June. A couple different species of them, not really important, they're all suckers. But anyway, this is an egg fly that we use. We got a couple different ones here I'm going to show you to imitate sucker spawn. So size 14 3x heavy scud hook, tying with some nano silk from Semper, and just going to build a little teeny ball, the nucleus. This is basically a nuke egg, and what I'm using here is some light yellow ice dub, just a real pale yellow, and you can make them all white. They kind of tend to have a little bit of a yellowish creamy hue to them around here, so I like this pale yellow ice dub. I'm just going to build a little ball there, 2/3 of the way up the hook, or where the thorax would be if we were tying a nymph. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to use a little bit of new product for us. Egg noodle. Show you some of this stuff. Just barely getting this one out packaged. Anyway, this is a really cool egg tying material that we have that it gives you a couple different things, and I'll show you as we work through that stuff, the egg noodle. So in the core of the egg noodle, there is some poly yarn in here that is really fine, like probably even finer than you know, any of the other McFly lawns, stuff like that. Anyway, it works really good for tying the veil or what's going to end up forming the outside of the eggshell. And we'll do that in white, so I've just pulled some of that core out, and then I split it into groups of 3 or so, and I'm just going to take on my side and tie a veil or a wing down my side, if you will. Get a few wraps of that nano silk right in front of that little ice dub nucleus. Then I'm just going to pull through the hook eye. The stuff will stretch around on your side, and then we'll just do a little head on this. I don't weight these. Don't usually weight any of my egg patterns because they're, at least it's my thought, that they're kind of neutrally buoyant. They don't really drag on the bottom. They kind of turn around in the water and the hydraulics right down on the bottom of the stream. So if I want to add weight, you know, I'll put a split shot or something up above them. But what we're going to do now is just cut that veil of the egg noodle material, and that's just going to form a little veil over that. And when that gets wet, the nuke egg forms a nice little translucent ball like so. And so that's the sucker spawn nuke egg with the egg noodle in white. And now we'll tie another fly in the sucker egg department. Grab that same hook. So we're tying on a 14 3x heavy scud hook. We've got some white 8/0, I believe, 50 denier, excuse me, nano silk from our good friends at Semper, Gary and Shane up the road here in southeastern Idaho. So just going to get my thread started on there, clip that off, and that nano silk, you know, builds just hardly anything. And so the next egg pattern that we like using around here is going to utilize the same core of the egg noodle yarn, and I'm just going to tie that clump out the back like so. And this is called the broke yolk. Really good sucker spawn material. A lot of times these sucker eggs don't come out whole, you know, and perfect and that kind of thing, like look like a, you know, beads would imitate, or trout eggs and stuff like that. Sometimes they'll be, you know, pretty tough exteriors. They'll come out with a lot of milt and a lot of different, you know, goo, and they'll tend to fall apart, be stuck together. The eggs are a little bit smaller than on trout eggs. And anyway, so a broke yolk just kind of represents a little bit of that goo, you know, maybe 2 or 3 eggs stuck together. And so we've just tied that egg noodle yarn on top, kind of like a little bow tie, extended, left it out the front. And now what we'll do is we'll take the other part, the outside of the egg noodle yarn, which is a clear tube, little hollow tube like the Chinese handcuff that Brandon always talks about, and we'll just take a little piece of that and we're going to tie it right there over where the thorax would be, where we put our nucleus on the nuke egg. And then I'm just going to make a little bead here by folding that egg yolk yarn, or the egg noodle yarn, forward, and I'm just going to make a little bump like so. And you can probably see where this could go. This makes a really good meth egg or whatnot as well, but we're not going to do that on this one. We're just going to do a single bump, single egg, clip that stuff off tight, and now we'll fold back, come forward a little bit, right to my eye, excuse me, right to my eye like so, and then I'll fold this back over the top and just form a little head here. And this is the broke yolk egg or sucker spawn. The broke yolk sucker spawn with egg noodle yarn. When this gets wet, it just goos out. You know, it's got a little shape to it, this little hollow, shiny little ball. It's neutrally buoyant. Then you get that real fine inner cord of the egg noodle yarn, and it just kind of goos out a little bit. We'll fish this one in combination a lot of times with the nuke egg sucker spawn, and really good combination while our suckers are spawning. We'll get trout that'll follow them up, and I mean, I've even watched trout, you know, bang into these suckers trying to knock the eggs loose when they get going. So pretty good thing early on in the spring over on Snake River Country. All right, one last one that we're going to do. I'm just going to show you how to do a simple cluster with just the exterior of the egg noodle yarn. Once again, size 14, 3X heavy Scud, 50 denier nano in white. I'm going to go ahead and cover the whole, or the better part of the shank on top, just like if you were tying a Scud or something on this. And now let's do some of the white. Okay. Once again, this is that egg noodle yarn, and here's the core. Inside of here, we pull the core out of the center, and we get the exterior, the little sheath. And I'm just going to do a little meth egg kind of cluster sucker spawn with this, a little farther back on the hook, and show you how you can just make a real simple meth egg out of this stuff. Same way I did on the worm, on the Bean and Franks, is I'm just going to make little folds in this and keep working my way forward. You can do it all the way around the hook if you want, which is not a bad idea. You know, as long as you leave some room for a gap. When those trout suck down these sucker eggs, they want them, they're going to eat them. So there's 3 little bubbles on this cluster. This is 4. Once again, the sucker eggs are a touch smaller than trout eggs. So I'd probably, you know, if I was going to make a cluster for trout eggs, I'd probably go up on, you know, a size 12 or a size 10. So we've got our little cluster there. bunch of whip finishes in there. Why not? The nano is pretty tough stuff. Cut that off. And there is our egg noodle yarn in white and our little cluster, egg cluster, whatever you want to call it, carton of eggs, $6.50.